So I was not. If I didn't get the class, I think it's all.
I'll start. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. We're gonna start with our science fair winner. So Barb and Kirk, I think, went and judged science fair projects last month. And we thought the saltwater study was the one we liked this year.
I'd like to introduce Natalie Loomis from Bags Elementary. She's in fifth. And so I'm going to just give this over to honest her and use the mic. She doesn't have to shout it.
So my project is farming, and you would be able to grow crops during a drought with saltwater. That would be a lot easier than having to find distilled water, which in time of drought is really expensive. And I know Wyoming has a lot of agriculture, so it's really hard for farmers and ranchers to be able to keep their animals and their crops because they can't get any water. So I wanted to see if you could use saltwater pellets. So I used chia pets and distilled water because you don't know what kind of minerals are in tap water. So I did 0% salt water because it was just plain distilled water. 25% salt water, 50% salt water, and 75% water. I'm also do the measurements. So I used a Word document to do the graphs. And my hypothesis was, no, you cannot use salt water because I know salt water dehydrates people. So probably dehydrate the crops before. And my hypothesis was supported because, as you can see, you can't grow anything except salt. But if you want first food on your chia pets, then go ahead. And so that's really all I have. Are there any?
Are you familiar with the awful schools in Wyoming that a lot of stuff already?
No.
There are a couple plants that grow in awful ways. Do you remember the list from
Four-wing salt.
So there are
They're not crops.
But they're not.
and okay, we have several wildlife animals here. What is salt and vegetation? Anything?
Sometimes desperation.
And I think there are insects that are affected. So, yeah, we just have to figure out a recipe for alkalis. Yes. How long did you soak your chia pets to get those results?
It was a 7-day trial. So on day 1, I watered them with the wrapped amount. And then I watered them the same amount of water every single day. But just needed what water was left on a certain trace. But after 7 days, I just stopped watering them.
We have a special presentation for members. So you learn about birds in Cheyenne. Okay, and the next thing we need to do is the drawing, the vertex. Now, two items, the first thing that gets drawing is pick which of the two items. First one. Oh, wow. Nancy Johnson. That is the little box. Julie Frank. Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break so now we can get for two of us out. And, yes.
So you guys want to talk about what kind of birds you're seeing while we're getting our stuff packed up? Ready? Vicky.
Sunny bird, but I saw a couple kill deer. I was 15, that had a purple brand.
Anybody else? Fran?
So this wasn't local. I went up to Dave Mountain, Ocean County this morning to an annual annual crane count. There was about estimated over 6,000 annual cranes there, and about 15,000 stones.
Oh.
So the birds are very cute.
I'm going to donate one pepper on my tree.
I think we were up off of County 136. Lots of Canada geese, but sharp-tailed grouse. Out it was last week, in the middle of the day. So, not typically anything we see right there, because that's all week skirts. Anybody else? Mark?
Well, our Audubon chapter field trip last Saturday was successful. We did get to see some cardinals outside of Lincoln.
Very good. And what else did you see?
Well, we saw other birds of note were a lot of bald eagles, and we did see a few of us saw 3 swans, trumpeted swans, and scattering of ducks, a lot of geese.
Very good. How many cardinals?
People reported at least 2.
We had a stellar jay in our tree row, looking very confused. I don't know what he was doing here. Because that's not something we ever see. Anybody else? Kirk?
I went to North Platte over the weekend and I saw a few cranes. I
Did you go to Row or did you?
No, I stopped in North Platte.
Oh, okay.
Nice there, in-laws and
Oh.
went and spent a morning in blind and yeah, it's pretty crazy, but you don't have to work hard to see the cranes and press.
Very good.
I was in Yellowstone, I got to be in Yellowstone a couple of weeks ago and saw trumpeter, saw swans and golden and dancers.
Wow.
And eagles.
I got a little snow up there.
Lot of snow.
Road open by the 4th of July.
It's not fun getting there.
Then
Very you get there.
fun trip. Anybody else?
Well, we saw Western Meadowlarks too, so that was fun, on the 15th. At a range, and a hornblower. One.
One horn. And you saw meadowlarks at Hereford Ranch?
Yeah. One was at the ranch and one was on the Rosie Trail.
Yeah, because we're not that far east and we haven't seen or heard one yet.
We saw on the 15th and again on
Really?
Wellington, just.
Earlier this week, it did show.
Yeah, we've got some male red-winged blackbirds, but usually the male meadowlarks show up about the same time, but. What's up? Winter, I think, is still up. Okay, so. Until we did that, we'll go in reverse order. Things coming up. Rustin's gonna talk about the Bluebird nesting project. But just so you know, on Saturday, March 25th at 1, he's gonna be out at High Plains to discuss the monitoring that needs to occur. Is that correct, Rustin?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to get you on the schedule. We have a board meeting next Tuesday night at the Conservation District. We could use some help. Please come. And Chuck will be doing country club birding on Friday, March 31st. Governor signed April is Native Plant Month for 2023. So Master Gardeners and Audubon Conservation District trying to push that a little bit. The Cheatgrass Summit is April 1st out at Archer. So if you're a property owner and you have a cheatgrass issue, please come. It's in the MK building, which is heated and does have restrooms. They moved it out of the community building, so that was a good thing for all of us. The crane viewing at Rowe Sanctuary in Gibbon goes through April 9th. So I went with Lori last year. It was a blast. I'm going again. She's going again. Lots of people are going again. It's definitely worth the trip. And then the monthly birding trip next month is April 15th. I don't know if Grant has picked anything yet.
It's usually our Earthfield grouse.
Grouse, that's what I thought. And I just wanted to announce that because the third Saturday comes before the third Tuesday. So then our regular meeting here at the library is April 18th. So that's all stuff that's coming up. And now I'll have Barb introduce Rustin, and I'll change the screen a little bit so that he can see part of his slides instead of the couple of people that have logged on. Give you that, and I'll turn this around.
Well, it was a couple of years ago that, Rustin's brother said, you need to meet my brother for a talk. You live in Cheyenne, he doesn't. And then we met Rustin and they had to take your workshop next year. And then he came up with this great idea. Turns out he's got a lot of experience putting up nestboxes and monitoring them and all that kind of thing. He'll tell you the rest of the story. Come on.
I don't. Okay.
So I should put that on your belt.
I don't think I would say I have a lot of experience. But I've played with it over the years and have had some success. And enough success to feel like, hey, I'm starting to get the hang of this nest box thing. So guess that's fine. Is it not in presentation mode or?
It looks good on the screen.
Okay, all right, fine. All right, so we're gonna talk about the High Plains Arboretum Nest Box project. Most of you in this group know what the Cheyenne High Plains Arboretum is, but I didn't know what the Cheyenne High Plains Arboretum was until a couple years ago. And I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. I always wondered what that group of trees was north of Happy Jack as you came into town. And so once I figured out what it was, went and started exploring it and really liked it. I do enjoy birds, and bluebirds, and particularly the mountain bluebird is one of my favorites. And I do love going up to like Kurt Gowdy because they have quite a few up there. And I always just kind of wish like, oh, I bet we could probably get them closer to town. And then when I discovered the High Plains Arboretum, I'm like, I bet we could get bluebirds here. And I know there's been, I've read about it. There's a lot of talk about like, oh, they like high elevation. I don't really think that's so much the case. I really just think they like good habitat because they nest in Nebraska as low as like 2,000 feet. The mountain bluebird does, along like the Pine Ridge areas and like the Wildcat Hills. Nothing there is over 5,000 feet. And they nest in that area. So I think it really is about habitat. Anyway, so I decided that after I tried to attract bluebirds to my current property and was getting tree swallows, which I was happy with, but I'm like, I still wanted to expand to bluebirds. So I reached out to the city, just found the number on the sign there, called them, got a contact, sent an email and said, I'd like to put up bluebird boxes or nest boxes on your property. I don't call them bluebird boxes because it's any bird, lots of birds are welcome to nest there, so I try not to be too restrictive. So they approved it. So they said that I could put nest boxes up on the part that the city leases. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it in the rest of the part where the federal area is, because the city has no control over that. So after I got approval, just kind of realized that I'd signed up for a really big project. And so I decided that I could get some help. So I think actually the person that I was talking with at the Arboretum told me to reach out to Barb Gorgeous. I apologize. I wanted to Barb and ask for money. So I did. I said, hey, I want to put up bluebird boxes. And she's like, oh, here's an application. You can apply for money. So I did. And they gave me money. And in exchange, I have to give this talk. Pretty much is how it works. So this is the plan that I used. It's pretty simple, from the North American Bluebird Society. And yeah, just got the money, built them, and then went and put them up. This is the map of the area kind of that I was allowed to put them in, and this is where I put them. I don't know, I don't know per se if I picked the right spots or not, but this is somewhat experimental for me. So, but this is where they are. So you can find them. I did mention that I did have some background with like nest boxes, or some success. So the mountain bluebirds, my brother actually put up several boxes on my sister's property, and she lives east of town. And she got a mountain bluebird pair. I don't know if it was the same one every year, but mountain bluebirds consistently nested there for several years. I want to say close to a decade. And so that was encouraging. So I was in eastern Nebraska for med school and stuff. And when we moved out here, I was excited to kind of try that again and see if we could have repeat success with mountain bluebirds. And then I tried some other things too, or not tried, I just happened to have some other things. Tree swallows, I have had some recent experience and luck with them. And then recently with the chickadee box, got a nesting pair of mountain chickadees, and they look like they're back and planning to nest there again this year as well. So I do have some success, enough to be encouraged. that I'm starting to get the hang of this. So when you want to be a bluebird landlord, any bird landlord, it's not as easy as you think. It's not about just putting up as many boxes as you can in a little area. You don't just put them up and leave them. You can, but it's, I'd say that you're not necessarily doing the birds, or at least the native birds, any favor with this kind of an approach. Like this thing is, I think this is in Colorado somewhere. Like Aspen, Colorado or something that did that. And that to me looks like a house sparrow hotel. So you want to, when you're thinking about where to put nest boxes, you want to know like what's the site that you have, what is the habitat, and what are you likely to get there. So is there, if you were a bird, or particularly the bird you were trying to target, would that be something, a site that would appeal to you or to them? Is there enough food? Is there water? Is there shelter? Could they successfully raise fledglings or raise a brood? What specific challenges does the site face? If you're in town or pretty much anywhere, honestly, if it's your property and you have houses and barns there, you're going to have a lot of house sparrows. So that's something you have to deal with. Predators, cats, things that you have to take into consideration. If you're close to a creek, it probably means that you're going to have raccoons. And so lots of things that you have to consider if you want this to be successful. So what birds are common in the area, and what are their specific needs? And then once you kind of have your species that you want, just research, plan, build, wait, monitor. And monitoring is, I think, the key aspect. I see a lot of, I think, I've seen a lot of places, and it can be Boy Scouts and stuff like that, where they put up a ton of bird boxes over an area, and then they just kind of, that's their project, it's done, and then they kind of leave it be. And in some areas that might be fine, like if you're out in national forest and there's not a lot of invasive species and stuff like that, they probably do pretty well. But if you're probably close to town, that approach probably isn't going to be very successful. So, there's a lot of cavity nesting birds out there, and they do all compete for nesting sites. And so you may be thinking that you've made a box for a specific species. That does not mean that that is the species that will nest in it. And as long as they're native, that's a success. It's a lot of native nesters, and they all are under the same pressures to find these places to have their nests. And then of course there's the invasive ones too. And I know everyone knows all this. I maybe not. I assume most everyone here does, but house sparrows were introduced from Europe, and they're one of the bigger challenges when it comes to nest boxes, because they can fit in a hole as small as 1.25 inches, which means that anything a bluebird can get in, a house sparrow can get into. They are here year round. They claim nest sites really early. They're very prolific, and they're pretty aggressive. And the males particularly are pretty aggressive at claiming sites and protecting them, or even taking over other birds' nests. So you probably don't need to see this. I'm, Facebook group, that everyone posts when they have something happen, but this was actually someone that had their box, and they were using the Van Oort trap, which is something they use to trap sparrows. And then when the bluebirds showed up, they stopped trapping them, but obviously it's still have it. They have you can see videos of how they do it, but they have this thick bill, and they'll just go on top and they'll just peck them at the head. That last one was some fledglings, but luckily the landlord intervened, and hopefully most of those fledglings made it. But they're always a threat. So there's things that you can do, and I think probably the safest thing to do is to put boxes where the house sparrows aren't. So far from your barn, far from your house. If you have acreage, put them on the far end of your acreage where the house sparrows aren't. And that'll make it much safer for your bluebirds and your other native birds. And then do monitor them, because if the house sparrow does move in, you should remove it. And then you can obviously trap and dispatch. I know not everyone likes to do that. But it is a potentially effective way to kind of decrease that pressure, is to get rid of as many house sparrows as you possibly can in the area. And then don't feed them. So they love chicken feed, they love cheap bird seed. Try to pick seeds that, or if you want to feed birds, try to pick foods that aren't particularly attractive to them. So these pictures, that first box is one of my boxes at my house. I built a shop, and now this bird box is close to my shop, and so now house sparrows have decided to start roosting in it. You can see this in the wintertime because that's pretty characteristic of their poop. They poop in the box they roost in, which is kind of gross, but house sparrows do that, and it's this little kind of curled cigar butt kind of look. So if you see that, you're pretty sure you have a house sparrow roosting there. That means that they've claimed that box. So unless you get rid of that box, or get rid of that house sparrow, or move the box, you're going to have a fight with that house sparrow. The second one is kind of a picture of what a typical house sparrow nest looks like. It's just basically lots of long grass. It's just stuffed in there. It kind of goes over, and so they have a pretty messy nest that's usually pretty easy to identify. And then that third picture is the Van Oort trap, and that's if someone's in a box. If a house sparrow is in a box, that's the one that I would typically use. And then they also have lots of other traps. Like that looks like I'm guessing that's a repeating deluxe sparrow trap, which you can buy online or build yourself. There's other things you can do. Sometimes you can't get, you only have so much land, you can't get far away, so you got to do a small, you could go small, right? So 1 1/8 inch hole, you can get chickadees, you can get house wrens, but the house sparrows won't move in. And then there's other things like sparrow spookers, there's fishing line that we've used, and slot box that can also. So ideally, I think the idea behind it is that in the case of a sparrow raid, hopefully the native bird can escape because there's more opportunity to get out. And obviously, if you're going to trap and dispatch, make sure you know what a house sparrow looks like, because there's plenty of native sparrows, but none of them go in nest boxes. European starlings are very similar, but bigger, so they can't fit in anything less than 1 9/16 inch. But still a challenge, particularly if you're trying to attract larger woodpeckers, kestrels, and other things like that. So getting rid of them is also a challenge. Predators. So where I live out in the prairie, we have we don't have anything that climbs. So I don't use predator guards on my stuff on my property. Because we don't have tree squirrels, we don't have ground squirrels, and the snakes we have don't climb posts, and we don't have raccoons, but in other places it can be a problem. So you don't want your nest boxes to be just raccoon lunch boxes. Cats are a major problem after habitat loss. Domestic cats pose a major threat to our native bird populations overall. And things that feed on the ground are particularly vulnerable, which unfortunately includes mountain bluebirds. They do a lot of their feeding directly on the ground and hunting for insects. So if you have cats, best case scenario is to keep them inside. They do have trap, neuter, release programs. And if you mount them a box, try to mount it someplace that a cat can't easily climb up. So this is an example. This is a chickadee box I had built. I had it up in my in-laws' house. And you monitor because things like this happen. It looks like a squirrel chewed it open and then made a nest inside. So I took it down and I fixed it, and I put the little metal plate there so it couldn't be chewed open again. But rather than put it on the tree, I was worried about the squirrels, so I decided to put it on a post. So there's just a lot of learning as this goes to try to keep your bird friends safe. This is the app that I use, and it's a website too to monitor nest boxes. So it's called Nest Watch. You can download it. It is basically walks you through exactly what you need to do when monitoring a nest box. And you can kind of go through and look at history and see when was the nest done, when did they first lay an egg, when was the first one hatched. And then you track all this, and it goes into part of a citizen science project that I think is pretty cool. If enough people do this, it's nice because you can pull up maps and you can see what's nesting around you, because all that information gets shared. I think I'm going to skip this because we can just talk this. They go through like how to monitor, the what to do, what not to do. But the basic deal is you want to be as the least intrusive as possible, the least disruptive as possible. You don't want to flush them from their nest in bad weather. You don't want to spend too much time there. Some birds are particularly skittish when it comes to, they might abandon a nest if there's too much activity. But we still want to be able to monitor to make sure they stay safe and to collect the data. All right, so bluebird specifically, there are 3 species in Wyoming. The mountain bluebird is the dominant species throughout most of the state, including Laramie County. And it prefers open woodland habitat, pine stands. They hunt on the wing a lot rather than from a perch. Like I said, also they'll hunt directly on the ground, kind of like a robin. And they're slightly larger than other bluebirds, so they require a slightly larger hole. And most of the nest boxes that you look up that are specific to mountain bluebirds also are just larger in general, have a bigger floor area, usually around like 5 by 5 or 5.5 by 5.5. They say, do 1 9/16. If you go bigger, the bigger it is, the more attractive it might be to European starlings. I will say I've done 1 5/8 quite a bit. I've never seen a starling go in one at 1 5/8, but I could be wrong. They arrive early, so that's kind of one of the things that they do to try to compete against other birds. But they can't arrive here before the house sparrows and starlings and things that don't migrate. And they'll raise multiple broods frequently a year. They may raise up to 3 broods in a season. Obviously, they compete with other birds. When they get here, obviously, it's a pretty critical time for them. They're in migration. They are out of food. They prefer insects, but they will eat berries and stuff. But those need to be available for them to kind of make it through until the weather warms up and they can have their insects to eat. Obviously, those invasive things that we talked about affect them quite a bit. They are territorial. I'll say at my sister's house, just east of town, we had like a handful of bluebird boxes up, but we only ever had 1 nest, even if other bluebirds were looking at the other nest sites. I think it's because the dominant one would chase away all the other bluebirds. So you're probably not going to get multiple bluebirds nesting in a small area, at least not mountain bluebirds. They kind of have bigger ranges. So they say to do it at least 200 to 300 yards apart, maybe even farther, depending on how much food is available. Threw this in because, where is Kirk? Oh, there he is. He sent this out a couple of weeks ago after he saw it. At the entrance, was that the entrance towards the Arboretum or? Yep. Okay, and that's, he got some good pictures, so they're back. I went there that following weekend and saw a flock about 12 right in that same area at the entrance. Unfortunately, not where my bird boxes are, which are farther in, but the wind keeps blowing them this way, but maybe one of them will stick around. We'll see. Kind of already. Oh, I will just say this, the bluebird boxes at my sister's house, it's kind of a sad story. We had success year after year after year to the point where it was kind of just taken for granted that we would have them. But some stray cats kind of moved in and the family kind of adopted them, and they thought the bluebirds were really delicious. And in about a single season, they were pretty much decimated, and we haven't had bluebirds there since. I will say, I don't know. I know they got at least 1 male bright blue because when I saw that the cat got, and then a lot of fledglings. if bluebirds have unsuccessful nests, they're typically gonna abandon that site and try someplace else. So this is another reason why monitoring is important. Tree swallows, I think, are something also we're very likely to get. Last couple of years, I've had tree swallows on my property. When I bought property north of town, I put up 3 bluebird boxes. There's no trees or really anything close to me, but I figured, who knows? And then we got a pair of tree swallows, which actually surprised me. I was not expecting that at all. Not even close to water, and everything I read says they like to be close to water. I guess they're close to your pond, your little pond. Maybe that's it. So we had 1 brood. They only do 1 brood a year. They're typically nest a little bit later than the bluebirds will. And then they'll stay in their nest box a little bit longer as well. But their habitat is very similar to bluebirds in that they like open spaces. They spend almost all their time in the air in flight. And then they occasionally obviously will perch, but they fly a lot and they're really fun and they're not afraid of you and they'll attack you if you go close to their nest box. So what I noticed last year, because the first year, by the time we didn't live there, so I didn't monitor as closely. The second year, so I had a single pair. The second year they came back and they claimed there was more of them, and they each claimed one of the 3 nest boxes on the property. So all 3 of them were claimed by tree swallows this last summer. And they beelined. I remember April 20th, I was driving home from work and I looked in and I saw a tree swallow, and it was like we were racing home. And I drove home and I beat it, but I wasn't speeding. And then sure enough, it comes right into the property, flies right to the nest box, right where it had nested last year. So I assume it's the same one, or at least maybe one of the fledglings or some part of that family, because it knew right where to go. So it's pretty cool. And then they disappear. I think they go hang out at one of our neighbor who has a pond and maybe hang out there, but they just keep coming back. What I've noticed is that like they'll put the male or whatever, they'll put a single straw in the box, and it's like, that's mine. It's like saving their seat. They'll put like 1 or 2 straws, blades of grass in the box, and then they'll ditch it. And then you're like, are they ever going to build a house, build a nest? And then eventually they do. So it's pretty cool. They have been known to help feed bluebird young and stuff like that, so they can use the nest box after them. It's kind of an interesting thing. I already talked about all that. So these are pictures from last year, because I was actually the first year. So that's the first year that I started using NestWatch and documenting things. As you can see, this is the area that I have it, and it's not really close to any trees, but they don't seem to mind that at all. You can kind of just see pictures as it progresses. They're pretty handsome by the end, when they're just about ready to fledge. I probably shouldn't have actually taken that picture. It's probably too close to fledging. But they're really cool. They're really fun birds. Oh yeah, I think that it sat like that on the left for like a month, and I wasn't sure if anything was going to nest there or not, but they did. All right, chickadees. I would say I like chickadees a lot. Actually, it's one of my favorite birds. When I was a kid, chickadees, one of the first birds that came to my feeder when I put it up as a kid. I just really love them. Of course, we had black-capped chickadees, but I like the mountain chickadees just as much. I put some chickadee. I tried to put bluebird boxes in my in-laws' house, but house sparrows kept nesting in them, and they were really nice people, and they wouldn't let me like get rid of the house sparrows. So I had to take down all the bluebird boxes. I'm like, I'm just going to stick with chickadee boxes there, and it sat empty. I think like a couple years. What we did see happening was a lot of the hole. And I was excited at first because I see a lot of nuthatches making the hole bigger, and I would get hopes up that a nuthatch would nest in there. But invariably, what would happen is once the hole was wide enough, the house sparrow would move in. And so what I decided is so last year I saw a chickadee pair close by. I saw one popping in, but the hole had been widened. So I went and got, just a piece of wood, put a little thing to keep it 1 1/8. and it worked, kept the house sparrows out. We had a successful chickadee brood. Chickadees, I mean, they're bottom of the totem pole, so the poor guys, they get pushed around by everybody. So if you can do the 1 1/8 hole reducer, they actually have a chance of being successful. I would say if you're in town, this is probably what I would try to do, because they don't need a lot of space, and you can have success with them. Let's see. Yeah, so here's a picture. And now chickadees they're interesting. Like, you won't know that they're nesting there. They're not like tree swallows and bluebirds that perch on top of their nest box and are always hanging around it. These guys are like more like James Bond, like you don't know they're nesting in there until something gives it away. And then you look in the box and you realize that this has been going on and you missed it. But they grow up fast. That's a week later. And that's a week later. And then, yeah, so I don't know. So basically, I would say, I do want to, I don't know how much time I'm supposed to talk anyways. Nest Watch is what I do use to do this. It is, I talked about it a little bit, and it has a mobile app that I think is quite easy to use. I feel like once you start using it, having a little bit of success with it, it's kind of addictive. And then I just, another website that I think is excellent, cialis.org, which is dedicated to bluebirds, but they have information about lots of different species. So you can look up mountain chickadees and they'll give you information about the life cycle and lots of information about most of the common cavity nesting birds. And so I always sometimes just like to get on there and just read about different birds that we might get and see what we get. That's pretty much it. I had Nest Watch pulled up, but I don't know how to change the escape. Okay. So here's Nest Watch. That's I made a new account just for the Cheyenne High Plains Arboretum project. And my thought is how this is probably going to need to work, because honestly, there's no way I can monitor all these boxes 1 to 2 times a week by myself. I have a job, I have kids. So, you know, and I want it to be successful. I don't want it to fail because of me. So that's why, you know, I feel like help from the Audubon Society would be fantastic. So typically what they recommend is about every 3 to 4 days. So twice a week, you do a check on these nest boxes. Obviously it would not need to be everyone. In fact, preferably it's only one person. And it's quick, and you just walk through and you check and you take pictures and you log everything that you see in the app. And then the nice thing about it is, because it is an app that we can all have and have that same login, then I can see, anyone can log on and see what's going on. They can see what's going on in box 2 or box 3 or box 4. And they can see when the last time it was visited was, so they can make sure that they're not visiting it too frequently. I do think, I think this is way underutilized. See if I can go. Well, let's see, I'll just click on this box 1. You can add attempt. All right, just as an example. And I usually use this on my app, so it might be a little bit different from what I'm used to. So 0 nesting attempts this year. Start a nesting attempt. So this is like the first sign you see that something is going to nest in there, and you put the date. And what do you see? Are there eggs? Are there young? Is there a nest? Did you see an adult? And then you just go through, and usually at the end, you can add pictures. And so those pictures get logged to that site. And you go through visit by visit. And then pretty soon you have it pretty well documented, the whole season, you know, what happened when, and then you can actually track and kind of, you know, they'll give you like stats like you fledged this many birds this year and this many species. This just kind of makes you feel involved and like you're doing, you know, some part of it to kind of help these birds that are kind of under a lot of pressure. Let's see, and then there is a map, and I do like the map. That's one of the reasons I wish more people use this. Let's see, if I go home. Explore data map. So you can see like nest sites all over the country. And you can zoom in. All right, I'm in Nebraska. I need to come over here. And you can search by year. So these are people in the past that have done this. Now this is all years. So if I just go to last year, right? I don't know why it goes back to 1874. Go to last year and zoom in, and you can search by species too. You say, I just want to see, you know, I want to see where mountain bluebirds are nesting. Unfortunately, they're nesting a lot of places that doesn't get data entry. So it can look like they're not there, but they are. Well, actually, this is last year. I can pretty confidently say I was the only one that used this app last year, because that's my property there with my three tree swallows, and that's my chickadee nest right there. So, but I would love to see more, and I think obviously right over here, right? That's where we're shooting. Maybe some things over there, and hopefully bluebirds, but you know, I'll be happy with whatever we get that's native. Questions? Yeah.
So when you take pictures inside the box,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Did you remove the lid somehow, or you got something?
Well, the boxes that I just built are side opening. So typically what I'll do, and this year I've actually ordered one of those scope cameras that you plug into your phones, but I haven't had that in the past. So what I've done is I've just get my camera ready, I turn it to video, and then I just try to wait for the parents to not be around. And I go in and open it up, and I like zoom like this, take a quick video, close it up, and then I'll watch the video and I'll like pause it at the right moment so I get a view of what's going on, and then I can at least hopefully get enough data to know how many eggs are in there, how many birds are in there, and what's going on. So you want to do it relatively quickly, because obviously it can disrupt. Now some birds are pretty tolerant. Tree swallows, luckily, are pretty darn tolerant people. Bluebirds, I'm told, are too, but still, you don't want to push it. You don't want to drive something away. I think usually once they have eggs, usually they're committed. It's a lot harder to get them to abandon a nest once there's eggs. But in the nest building phase, you can cause them to abandon it if they feel like they're being too disturbed. So they recommend doing it every 3 to 4 days. While nothing is going on, I'll go weeks without checking, because like right now, I mean, not much is going to happen quick, right? Even if there's bluebirds, let's say there's mountain bluebirds there, the tree swallows aren't even back yet. Mountain bluebirds there, let's say they like some of these sites, they've got to find a female, do a courtship, and even once they find a site, it might be a while before they start building a nest. Interesting thing about Cialis.org is it actually has the average date of the first egg laid by state, and mountain bluebird is like May 9th or something like that, like right around Mother's Day, when you would typically expect to see the first egg of mountain bluebird in Wyoming. But that's how I do it. I just do a quick video, and then I'd upload it. Upload just a snapshot of it. Questions?
I know you asked for the funding from society that you were planning on doing 16 boxes.
Yeah, we only did 8.
I know. But what I was wondering is, where would the other 8 go in relation to those?
So honestly, I think 16 was too many, because when I walked it, I think I was thinking Eastern Bluebird. It could be a little bit closer. And honestly, I don't even know if some of these might actually be a little closer than I like to. And get the map pulled up. Or just go home. So some things that can be done, because frequently you may not get two bluebirds nesting next to each other, but supposedly you can get a bluebird and a different species nesting close to each other. But that is still a challenge though, because from what I've read about bluebirds is they tend to be a little bit greedy when it comes to nest boxes. So if there's like 3 nest boxes in this area that they kind of claim, they'll claim all 3 of them, even though they're only going to use one of them. So, and they won't let a chickadee or a nuthatch or a tree swallow. Now I've heard stories that sometimes tree swallows and bluebirds will nest close to each other and have some sort of a symbiotic relationship. But my experience, I was reading this study about it and they said that that's frequently the case. They'll claim any nest box that they can fit into. So what you can do, that's where like putting hole reducers, if you see a chickadee popping in and out of a box, put a hole reducer on it. Because you better to have a chickadee than to just have the box sit empty. And so if you get a chickadee nesting there, then you put on that hole reducer and then nothing else will drive it out because it's small and that's the safest bet. So some people actually, there's data now that says you should do varying sizes of holes. I don't know what I should know, but I don't know what the hole size is for a tree swallow, because I know that they can fit. I just always made them for bluebirds and they just nest in the bluebird boxes, so I've never had to worry about it. But obviously they're somewhere between a chickadee and a bluebird. I don't even remember what your question was.
It's the number of.
Yeah, I don't think we can, if we did more than 8, I would say we might need to vary the size and style of the box to diversify species. Because I doubt if you're really going for bluebirds, I'd be surprised if you could get even 8 would be, I feel like pushing it. A few of them are a little bit closer than I like. But we can see. I mean, if we get a few bluebirds in any of that'd be fantastic. And maybe they can expand to other areas. Maybe people's properties if they want to take this on themselves.
Have you thought about asking the federal people, the ARS people?
The thought has crossed my mind. I just don't know how to do it. Do you have contacts?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would gladly do that. Because my original thought was, I thought the perfect place was along that entrance where they got that fence and those pine trees is pretty open. I'm like, this looks like pretty ideal mountain bluebird habitat.
Well, the whole area is actually owned by the city. It was leased for 200 years to the federal government.
Okay.
They took back the Arboretum part of it. And I think the city's about ready to take back the rest.
Oh,
So
okay.
just wait.
Yeah, I mean, I would be all for expanding it down that whole entrance road. I think would be pretty awesome. I hope that I know that they say not to put it too close to roads for obvious reasons, for safety. But I'm hoping that if you face it right, if you face it east on those fence posts, you might be fine. Or if we're not doing fence posts, we can do it wherever. Yeah, I'd be totally up for trying to expand it that way. Because that's where I saw the bluebirds, that's where you saw the bluebirds, and that's where you saw your bluebirds. It was right at that entrance. So I feel like it's not that far away, but it might make a difference. Other question.
Yeah, so you're asking for help?
I do. I want help because I'm not going to be able to go there once or twice a week. The recommended minimum when you're monitoring this box, they recommend at least once a week going to check on all your boxes. Like I've got military leave this next month. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. So that'd be no monitoring at all during that time period. Now there may not be much going on yet, but there could be. Yeah, and I'm still not sure how to do that. I think that the Nest Watch app would work well, but I'm not sure how to make assignments for days. My guess is it would have to be something online, and we probably just shoot at least once the nests are being built, probably a midweek and a weekend, and someone volunteer for one and someone volunteer for the other. And then just make sure that after you visit it, you upload that data right away so that someone else doesn't do it, we don't disturb them too much. So yeah, I didn't even bring a piece of paper, but I'll take contact information of anyone that wants to help. And I don't know if this is gonna work. But it's worth a try, I feel like, and so I'm hoping for the best. I feel like our chances are good, even if we don't get bluebirds, of getting some other cool birds that could potentially nest there.
So I'll point out that our outing on Saturday is out to the Arboretum. To look at the setup of the Bluebird box to talk about volunteering and timing. And hopefully we'll get some people coming out and people signing up for something.
Yeah, be great.
We're gonna meet at the Arboretum on Saturday, have fun in the afternoon. So you can sleep in. Or do whatever you want. So, 1 o'clock, hopefully, and we'll talk right at the Arboretum itself. There's an area right there that's mapped out for parking area.
Just watch out for the stumps. It's not that great.
Yeah, should we as far as volunteers, I mean, is an email sent out and people like send us their information, or
Yeah.
is that way? Because I know not everyone's here that would want to participate. And not everyone may be there on Sunday. Or Saturday, I apologize, Saturday. But you know, we get a list and maybe people can, I don't know.
Could we do a little listserv?
Yeah, we can set it up on Google Sheets or something like that and just get people a link.
Okay,
And what we'll do is we'll say these people are allowed to use it and we can do all anything we want.
okay,
I've used that before for that kind of thing, so I can help set that up.
okay, thank you.
I have some paper here, if there's anybody that's here tonight that cannot make Saturday, but you want to be in on the information, you can write it on my notebook.
But if we're gonna be there Saturday, don't bother.
You don't have to.
Hopefully it's nice weather Saturday.
Is there anybody that doesn't know how to get to the Arboretum and would like to see a map for? Get there. Somebody would like to see that, we can bring that up.
So, yeah, you can go off, it's off of Round Top. I'll zoom out here. This is Round Top. Yeah, right next to the Veteran Cemetery.
It's where the road splits. And it's this Arboretum Research Station.
So right here is where people park. It's just a mulched area by these trees.
Oh, 34 degrees.
It'll be cold.
And
We'll only have the real dedicated people show up. Yeah,
Well, thank you, Rustin.
Yeah.
Great job.
thank you.
Anybody got anything else? Then I guess we'll see you all Saturday in the Arboretum. With your car parts and your hat.
Oh, I think my relatives are all gonna make a tour of it. Thanks.
I can't make it so.